When you come into the world, we take on the identity of those who are more powerful than us. What we're looking for is a kind of person who is looking for meaning. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Alan Masters. This is my brother David Masters, the Foundation of Human Understanding Sunday Conversation. Welcome. Today I want to talk about your why. Because if you don't know your why, you better start thinking about it. You know, I realize that each one of us is kind of like not a time capsule, but a capsule. What do they call those capsules they put under the ground?
It's a time capsule.
Time capsule?
Yep.
Okay. And it seems like that, you know, we're each in our own little pod. I am my, you know, kind of the sum total of all the decisions I've made in my life inside of this capsule. And I'm either going to, you know, take it with me or I'm going to leave some of the good behind. That's called the ripple effect. The ripple effect, each one of us has a ripple effect. It can be a negative one, like a tsunami that comes in and just wipes people out when you're too powerful, even with good. Some surfers look at tsunamis and go, oh, the waves are up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Other people run because when the waves are up, maybe from a distance, the waves look like, oh, I'm going to go surfing today. As the wave gets closer, all of a sudden it's destructive. So you got to be careful about being too powerful in anything. Like my father always says, calm. And I watch him to this very day. I've been with him the last 3 days, pretty much 12 hours a day, working around his house, fixing things, changing things, adding smoke detectors and making sure that we have everything up to snuff. And I watch my dad, and he is really working on that calm. So why not take a hint from the Yoda master himself? I saw somebody in Home Depot when I was buying a new door handle. We had a broken door handle, and they said, how's your dad? I said, he's 91. So he's doing as well as a 91-year-old person does, I guess. And I mean, everybody has their things they deal with in life. And but the one constant is this pursuit of calm. Keyword pursuit. What does it say? Be still and know that I am God. So God wants you to be still. What is that stillness? How do we find it? If you were to be a rocket ship trying to leave the Earth's atmosphere and the gravity of Earth that holds you earthbound, otherwise we'd all fly off the Earth without the gravity, right? So you're trying to leave and the capsule gets hotter and hotter and hotter because it's going through all of this gravitational pull to keep you earthbound. What is that gravity? Do we have that same gravity on our soul? Is it a different type of gravity that holds us earthbound? So as we try to find the ultimate stillness that is out in space, when you get out past the gravity, it's dead silent. It's very interesting. There's no gravity. You float. You watch the spaceship guys, the astronauts. They're in the capsule, inside the capsule, floating. No gravity, no cars honking, no sirens. So I went to Washington, D.C. the other day, and on the way there, I put some noise-canceling headphones on to try best to get my peace and quiet from all of the things that are going on, the conversations and noise, and it works quite well. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking about, you know, as we took off, and I thought, isn't this interesting? I feel the pressure, feel the torque pushing me back into the seat, the G-force, I guess it's called. And I thought to myself, man, we're really having to go. And if we kept going and went through that, what is it? The rings of, or the gravitation, the pull. And that's how life feels to a lot of us. It holds us earthbound. It holds us into this body so that we cannot escape what we are. this thing that we are, this flesh and blood that we are. And when the reality of it is, I think my father, he says the meditation, concentration, exercise. He talks about this exercise, this thing that we do in order to, I believe, escape, not escape, but it is escape. It's escaping the atmospheric pull, right? To escape the thoughts for a moment, to push them out, to be able to find that stillness inside the mind where you don't feel the pressure, the earthly pressure. You can see it all happening all around you. I'll describe it like this. You've seen Saturn with the rings around it. Those rings are floating around the outside. And in those rings, what we're seeing is the flotsam and jetsam, all of the things that are caught as they try to pass by that planet and they get pulled in, and it's dust, and to us like thoughts, anger, all that stuff that's floating around us that is distracting us from getting free of those thoughts, to get past those thoughts, past the gravity of life that holds us earthbound, fleshbound. If we can get past that, then there's that stillness and that silence that we look for. And I believe that that's what my father's meditation is all about. And it's interesting that one of our people in the audience said something about that the meditation is not a silver bullet, and it's not. It isn't just something that you can do, a one single thing that you can do, and all of a sudden your life is better. It's the sum total of every single thing you do in your life. Every thought, every decision. And it's funny, as the closer you come to the stillness, and as you start to pass through all of the flotsam and jetsam of your mind, the anger, the contempt, the judgment, the traumas, the lust, the food, Taco Bell, in my case, whatever it might be, that flotsam and jetsam of your mind, when you start to pass through that and you start to make decisions, a little anger pokes its head up. Then all of a sudden, believe it or not, it feels very foreign. It feels like, well, where did you come from? I thought I left you behind. See, because it wants to pull you back in. It's like the fisherman casting out the lure and reeling in, hoping you'll, here comes the thought. Where'd that come from? The fish is just swimming around. All of a sudden, blip, there's the lure, and it little wiggly worm. And then it starts to move, and you're like, wait a minute. Your attention gets drawn with the lure. You're being lured in. So the question is, what is your why? What is your purpose? Like my father says at the beginning of these Sunday conversations on the recording, why are we here? Why are we here? What is your why? There it is. So, I challenge you, each one of you, to look and question, why are we here? The same thing my father says, why are we here? We're here, I believe, to take that journey back. We get thrown into the world, born into a family, born into brothers and sisters and people that sometimes we go, I don't even know that guy anymore, right? And then sometimes that guy or that girl or that mom or that dad will have that aha moment, that awakening, and come back to you or come back to themselves again. And you go, there you are, Peter Pan, right?
Love that scene.
Who was it? Was it Tinkerbell or who was it?
No, it was one of the kids.
One of the kids. One of the
little kids. It was
stays little forever in the world of Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Grabbed Peter Pan's face and pulled back the wrinkles and said, there you are, Peter Pan. The newer Peter Pan movie, if you're wondering what we're talking
with
about.
Robin Williams.
Well, yes, and it's actually
It's a great
old
movie.
now.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we have to examine what is our purpose in this world. And then we become a sum total of every choice from that day forward. Because at some point, we are really not responsible for the garbage that has been downloaded into us. We look back and go, oh my gosh, I've done all these horrible, stupid things. I've destroyed my kids or that or this or done bad business or whatever. And we look and we go, today I'm awake. All of a sudden I'm awake What happened while I was in that sleep state that I thought I was awake? The Matrix. Those people, if you look at the movie The Matrix, above on Earth, think they're all living their lives, but the real aware people are traveling underground somehow, trying to find, what's that guy's, Nemo or whatever his name is? Neo. Anyway, we love science fiction movies. Both David and I do. But the point is that when you wake up, that day you wake up and you say to yourself, wow, I have really, really screwed up my life and my children's lives and my friends and my businesses and my business partners and people I met on the street that I raised the middle finger to. That's not the middle finger. Just because they looked at me funny. Reactions.
I haven't done that in about a month.
It's so interesting. You got to watch those. Those are that flotsam and jetsam of your mind. And you can get caught up in that gravitational pull to hold you to the earth, where guess who has got domain? The dark side. Be still and know that he is God. You cannot be still unless you have some sort of mechanism to be still, because we are earthbound creatures. So guess what? My dad, you guys all know, he tapped into this pretty basic exercise, and it's basically, I guess if you put one word on it, it's prayer. It's being open to your Creator. Just opening your mind and saying, what is my purpose, God? What shall I do today? I'll start working. You guide me. Because I've tried waiting. How many else tried waiting? Waiting for God to heave a rock with a little note tied around it. And, crash. Oh, somebody threw the window. Let's go. It's a note from God. There it is. Take out the trash. Oh, no, that's from my dad.
Your wife.
My son says to me the other day, he says, hey, Dad, can I have this or that? And I said, why? Why are you asking me for that? He says, because I need it for my house. My son just bought a house, my 19-year-old son. And I said, it's interesting. I've asked you to do a number of things for the last couple of weeks, and you haven't wanted to do a single one of them. Not one. And you were asking me.
I think I was there when you said that.
No, this was last night.
Oh, okay.
I said, you're asking me now if you can have some building materials or whatever it is. And I said, no, I don't want to. I have other things to do right now.
Yep.
I said, you have to make sure that everything you do in your life, now I'm going to give it to him because it's not a big deal, but I needed to make that point with him. You can't just be a selfish pig in this life. It's so easy to be selfish. It's so easy to play the game of life. Don't we all love playing the Monopoly and the game of life? And it's so easy. It's a game. The problem is we come back to that ripple effect, that selfishness ripples out. And then your children start to be selfish. So I know I was selfish as a young man. Absolutely know it. And now I'm learning how to not be such a selfish person. Because if you live for yourself, then you're going to die by yourself. And like my dad says, you're going to go in the dirt. I think this thing goes in the dirt. I'm okay that this goes in the dirt. From the dirt I came, and from the dirt I shall return. But I don't want what is inside of this capsule, to just go into the dirt, because it has no intrinsic value to our Creator. I want my why to be His why. And I want to stand up, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so I look each day, what is my why? I look for it in every opportunity. And I see my dad. I always remember how we would, as children, you get into an elevator. OMG. You're in an elevator with my dad and 3 other people, or 1 other person. My dad started the original elevator pitch. Because he wouldn't walk into the elevator without looking at a person and going, I can help you with that fat, It's like it doesn't matter what it is. He's going straight to the problem, or beautiful day outside, isn't it? Why are you smoking?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. How do you know I'm smoking? I can smell it on you. And it's like, boom. Now they're standing outside the elevator because it gets and the conversation. And my dad says, check out FHU.com. So I challenge you to find your why. Ask for what your why is. Stand up for something. The last time I did the show, I was gone last week because I had to go to Washington, D.C. And I said, the trolls that are mentioning and commenting and saying little nasty thing from the flotsam and jetsam of their mind. And then barely anybody responded. Barely anyone. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I don't not want you to respond. Please, respond. But from a higher nature, not your lower nature. Love to hear from you. David Masters.
Interesting and insightful. Well, as I think I've told you, I'm working on a new, it's almost like a documentary on addiction. I started listening to various people giving TED Talks and different psychologists and different counselors. And it's interesting to note that science is beginning to come our way because there's this basic fundamental thing that we all have to deal with, and it's called truth. So if you're looking for some kind of a quick fix or a pill, a magic bullet or anything like that, it doesn't exist, and science knows it. Although we are chemical. We're just like the animals in the sense that we can, if we eat the wrong thing, it makes us sick. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to the fact that we have these chemical interactions that go on in us, the adrenaline, the fight or flight, that's all chemical. But the good scientists are beginning to see the power of meditation, to fight whatever it is that's inside of us. Because as Alan just stated eloquently, these things have collected in us and around us throughout the course of our life. As a matter of fact, you're right. We didn't deserve any of this, actually. We came into this world, and we inherited all this nonsense and all the problems of our family. So in the course of this documentary, I'm going to narrate what I'm hearing from other people. I have some interesting quotes from some scientists and some counselors.
It's interesting, too, because my father always talks about my mother. He's always talking about my mother and his relationship, and now he got married after just, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my father has had a very tumultuous relationship with my mom, and I think, does anybody not know that in this world, or that has just met my father?
That's a secret.
If you're just brand new,
knows about that.
My dad got married after 2 weeks. Now, that wasn't the smartest thing he could have done, but I got to tell you, I am so happy, selfishly speaking, that he didn't marry that perfect woman and that I became that perfect child, although I have.
I saw you walking on water the other day. I was impressed.
I know that the struggle is the most important part of your and my life, our struggle. I've said it to my kids 1,000 times. They're sick of hearing it, like my dad taking his thumb off. Anybody seen that? I've seen it 1,000,000 times. You got this trick he does. I've said, if the chicken didn't struggle out of the egg and kick and fight out of the egg, it would die inside the egg. Okay? We must struggle. It is not the struggle that kills us. It's how we deal with the struggle. And if we deal with it correctly, then we become what we're supposed to become. So I didn't make that same mistake with my wife. But let me just tell you, I've been 38 years, been 33 married, almost 38 years since the day I took her out for the first time, had a proper relationship with her for almost 5 years, got married, have kids and grandkids. We have had our struggles. We have had, it's like, she is the nicest human being I've ever met. We have our struggles. Those struggles are meant to make me look at my selfishness, me look at my anger, her look at her selfishness, her look at her anger, whatever it is. Family struggles, your brother did this, your sister did that, your brother did that, his sister did this, whatever. We have to look at all those emotions. That struggle, the struggle of life, is the value statement. It's the value of your life. If you didn't have any struggle, my dad tells a joke about a kid that was born, never said a word. He's 29 years old. Finally, one day at dinner, he says, "Hey, Mom, can you pass the salt?" And they went, "What? You talked, you spoke. What happened? You've never said a word." He says, "Everything's been fine up until now." Right? You have to have struggle. Otherwise, what are you? You become a blob. I'm glad my dad struggled. I'm glad I witnessed all of the struggle. I'm glad my kids witnessed my struggle. We used to try and protect our kids from that struggle. We didn't want our kids to see us fighting because my mom and dad used to argue all the time. I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do that.
The word is disagree.
But we didn't want our kids, so we'd go to the back of the house, to the closet, close the door in the closet, get in between the clothes and go, "No, you're not going to go to hell." Oh, did I say that?
That sounds like a pretty good, effective tool, that closet.
We would then end up laughing before it was over. Because sometimes you just got to pop that pimple. And then we laugh and we go back out. But then at a certain point we realized, you know what? We would go in the closet because we wanted to let go. Let go. Let that whatever fly. And at a certain point, how undignified. At a certain point, you have to find that higher nature way of having a discussion. Who was it that said tact? What is tact? Oh, it was one of those presidents back in the 30s or 40s. I can't think of it. He says, tact is the ability to tell somebody to go to hell and then for them to turn around and ask you for directions.
I think that's Theodore Roosevelt.
So the problem is we don't know how to disagree. And you're seeing that play out on Facebook and in the media. Nobody knows how to disagree. They attack each other. Tact is what we need. Discipline, to argue from a point of being disagreeable, but not hating the other person. And that's just maturity. We'll call that maturity. It doesn't matter if you're 55 or 95. At some point, you have to have that aha moment of, well, it's okay to disagree, but I'm not going to sink into my lower nature, into my anger self, my pain body, and say, "Go to hell. I'm sick of you." How many times we heard this kind of arguments? And then your kids watch it, and the kids look at each other and say, "Go to hell." I said to my son-in-law, who this little Owen, my grandson, who's about a year and a half, he's now using words. And every now and then my son-in-law will say something nasty in front of me. He's only a year and a half. Oh, let me tell you, children are like sponges. They're watching everything. That's why he went, because he's already just watching facial expressions, and he's figured out how to use that one. So we are also little children, and we also sponge in. As adults, I believe we still sponge in the bad. We can also sponge in the good. So when we see somebody having an argument, like David, I know, is going to talk about Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist, and I know a lot of you know who he is. He's a fantastic arguer. He argues because he just knows this stuff, and he doesn't need to get upset. And it's a brilliant thing to watch. And I sponge that in and say, that's how it's done. Aha. That's how it's done. I used to watch my dad, and he would argue with people, and he would stay as calm as he could, and the other people would start getting more and more upset, and my dad would smile and say, "Now I've got you." So, David, go ahead.
Well, interesting insights, for sure. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is quite brilliant. I wasn't even actually say his name until the end. But let me read this to you from Jordan Peterson. He says, "To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into the realities of habitable order. It means adopting the burden of self-conscious vulnerability and accepting the end of the unconscious paradise of childhood."
Unconscious
Bingo.
paradise. Isn't that interesting?
Wait, one more. I just love this. Where finitude and mortality are only dimly comprehended. So, children, we all none of us ever thought we were going to ever die when we were kids. We think we could do anything, get away with it. It means willingly undertaking the sacrifices necessary to generate a productive and meaningful reality. It means acting to please God in the ancient language. Now, here's a guy, I was watching these documentaries about him, and he talks about how he was an alcoholic and how he was a smoker and that he was killing himself. And by the age of 25, he started to realize that there was more to life than intellect. So he started to look through his lens with the tools that he had at him available to find God. And he didn't even know what he was looking for. He just knew there was more to life than the intellect. Going on to another one, he says, you're going to pay a price, and I've heard this all my life. You're going to pay a price for every bloody thing you do and everything you don't do. You don't get to choose to not pay a price. Now think about that. Now I'm going to change it because I don't like the way he says it. I'm going to change it after I read it. He says you get to choose which poison you're going to take. That's it. I don't look at it that way. I look at it from the point of view is you get to choose why you're going to be punished, why you're going to suffer. There's a big difference.
I chose Junior Mints the other day. It was bad. I had a whole box. It was pure poison.
You're not type 2 yet.
I love them. Now I went from Taco Bell. You know they stopped making the double Crunch Rack Supreme. I went in there the other day and they stopped making it.
I saw there was a riot the other day.
Three Sunday talks ago to know what I'm talking about if you're just watching this Anyway,
That's
life
funny.
is funny, isn't it? We were talking about just for a moment ago. Life is so funny. I find myself laughing at myself and at my children and at my parents. We go to visit my mom together every now and then. My mom is in a facility. She's got bad knees. She can't walk anymore.
Yeah.
And, man, she loves to laugh. And we'll start talking to her. She laughs so hard she almost passes out.
Yeah.
And to me, laughter is such a wonderful thing because it's a form of relief. It's actually, you can be into comedy and be into telling jokes too much too, because it is a form of relief, just like crying is a form of relief. And so my wife says to me the other day, she says, will you stop using me as the butt of your jokes? And I said, I don't. I mean, come on. I was on the phone with my friend and, he said something and I said, yeah, I know I've been married 38 years or whatever.
Mm-mm.
And she says, why do you do that? I said, come on, all guys do that. And she says, please stop doing that. And I went, okay. It's not necessary. When you laugh at somebody else's expense. And so I learned, it's like you never stop learning that ripple effect. I think it's funny, ha ha, but it's not funny to her. So the ripple effect, I want to remove everything that is a ripple effect in a negative way from my life. I don't need to. I can find another way. I can not tell a joke. I can not have to laugh the same way I can not cry over something. I can look at it and go.
I will add to this, though. It's one thing all men have in common.
Well, what's that? Joking about their wives?
Yeah,
That's
because
what I was saying.
there are typical things.
Right, but so here's my point. Here's the point that she was making.
Well, I'm saying it's an icebreaker with somebody.
Well, no, it can
It doesn't
be.
have to be, but
It can be. So I was, I'll tell you a little story if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This is really great, by the way. I like this stuff. I was in Washington, D.C. at the State Department the other day, and I don't travel much with my wife. And I was there because a mentor friend of mine in business was being sworn in as the Undersecretary of Economic Development, Energy, and the Environment. And he's an amazing man. His name is Keith Krach. You can look him up if you want. Krach. Anyway, I was there, and my wife doesn't have a chance to get dressed up too often. She's she's just a regular person. And how often do you get dressed up? But when you go to the State Department, she got dressed up. And I felt like I was with Princess Di. I felt like I was with a princess. She was just absolutely beautiful. And let me tell you, I didn't make any jokes about her. I didn't make anything. I just was pleased to be with her. And we had a wonderful time going around Washington, D.C. and seeing the National Mall and the Monument and Abraham Lincoln Memorial and the White House. We stayed across the street from the White House and all the different things, the Capitol. And we were riding bikes. You can rent bikes. And And I swear to you, I felt like I was like a 12-year-old kid riding my bike with my girlfriend, who I just adored. And so I just thanked her for being such a good friend to me and such a good mother and grandmother now. And so when I made that tiny little itty bitty little toenail, the little toenail shaped like a canoe, the tiniest one, I made a tiny little joke, and she says to me, she uses perfect timing. Please don't do that anymore. I saw it. The it that doesn't need to be in my life, which is I want to have a perfect relationship with my wife. Is it attainable? It must be. It must be, or we wouldn't be thrown into this arena to try and work it out with each other. So there's a certain wonderful kindness, loving kindness that a man can have for his wife that I want to have for mine. I see my father having it with my mother. I see it intermingled with the flotsam and jetsam of the 70 years of their relationship.
Hold on.
66.
4.
64. No. You're 65.
Takes a year.
Huh?
Takes a year after marriage to have.
Okay, well, whatever. 65, 4, 5, whatever. No, it'd be a year longer then. Anyway, point is that I want to have that perfect relationship with my wife. I think it is a requirement to better the next relationship behind that, which is with my children, and the next relationship with that, which is mankind in general. If I cannot have a perfect relationship with my wife, then how can I have a perfect relationship with anyone else? Because she knows the real me.
So, if you don't say what you think, then you kill your unborn self. Here's another good one. When you have something to say, silence is a lie.
So stop right there. When I was at Washington, D.C., something happened inside of my soul. Something happened inside of my soul. I became patriotic. I could see what my brothers and sisters and people before me, God's other children, have endured to make America great as it is today. Even in its craziness, we live in the best country in the world. And through going to the monuments and the different museums there, you could see this history, and I felt it in my soul. Something stirred. And I realized that if I am silent, then I'm killing the person, I'm murdering the person that could be president or could be an aide to the person that is going to do the president's work, or a person that's going to help that person that's going to help that person. So when I was there and my friend put his hand on the Bible and was sworn in, I got in the line of people to congratulate him, and I said to him, congratulations, stand on my shoulders to see what you need to see to do your job. I want to be there to help you however I can. I am standing ready to help you. And he hugged me and he said, thank you, I will. You're part of my team. And I just thought to myself, I must say that. We must say what has to be said to the right people. If we're silent, if I was afraid in that moment. And you know something, I'm going to say a little more here for a moment. Something tried to stop me. While he was being sworn in, I got sick. I got so sick that they had to call the paramedics. I had to go into the bathroom. I thought I was going to throw up, and I got so sick in my stomach that they called the State Department paramedics and the police and everybody, and I was in this room, this very historic room that was next to the bathroom, because you're in this, all this history there. And I was carrying a cup of water, and the guard stopped me, and they said, You can't take that water because all these rugs or all these, and all this artwork and furniture, Abraham Lincoln's desk. And I'm walking with some water, and they're like, you can't take that water. And I said, okay, I'm just going to the bathroom because I'm going to throw up, so you better let me go. And she goes, go ahead. And then that woman called somebody, and then that somebody called the paramedics. Something was stopping me, trying to stop me. Maybe those junior mints, I don't know. But I'm joking. As I was sitting there, thinking to myself, I've come all this way to witness my friend getting sworn in, and something is stopping me. And I was sweating. I was dressed up in a nice suit and tie, and my wife was there. She kept, she says, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, yes, just go ahead. Leave me with these people. You go and be in there. I want to make sure you're in there. And I was standing there. The police were asking me questions, and I was in this zone of almost like, have you ever felt that way to where, like you're floating inside of yourself, like something bad is about to happen. And the people were like, and it all slowed down. They asked me for my ID. I could hear that much. I gave them my ID. And I was sitting there, and everything was in slow motion. And I felt this horrible, horrible pain inside of my stomach. Not my chest, but inside my stomach, between my stomach and my chest, which I think is a gallbladder. I don't know. It doesn't matter what it is. And I said to God, why, God? Why now? Why now, God, when I am here to support this man in his amazing journey? He just went to visit Pence, who is a friend of his from college, and he says, I don't like what I see is happening. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Same thing I said. Vice President Pence says, are you serious? He says, yes, I am. This man's a billionaire. He says, then I need you to come work for us now. And he says, I'll do it. He's a billionaire, doesn't need to do it. He says, I am happy to help this country. Here was my chance to now be in that role. Something was trying to stop me. Paramedics came. Right as they got there, something went boop. And it all just went away. It all went away. They took my blood pressure, my blood sugar, my temperature. And as they were preparing to do it, I went from thinking I might die right now in the State Department of the United States of America to all of a sudden, I stood up and I said, I feel much better. I'm okay. I'm all right. Blood pressure was mostly normal. They said, it's fine. Blood sugar was fine. Oxygen was fine. They said, are you sure? They looked me right in the eye. I said, I'm fine. Wiped the sweat off my lip. I could feel the sweat through my clothes. Took a deep breath. Walked in right as he was being sworn in, right at the very tail of it. Got in line, took a picture with him. And if you see this picture, you would not know anything was wrong. That 12 or 15 minutes earlier, I felt like I was going to die. Something was trying
I'll tell you what it was.
to stop me.
At least it's my point of view. And that is, every one of us has what I call an event horizon, where something is about to happen. It could be good and it could be very bad. But the good event horizons come about with moments of opportunity. So you come all that way, what are you doing there? That's the question. And then the question goes beyond that, but what does God want you to do? That's always the question in my mind. And what dawns on us at some point is that we're transcending just like the flotsam and jetsam part of our life, and we feel the burden of the responsibility that if we make some kind of statement, it could be that you actually get that okay, and then something else begins to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a huge burden, even for the most enlightened person. You have no idea what you're going into. It's like Columbus sailing into the sea, but you got to have the courage and the grit and the guts to do it. And that's what happened to you. You had an event moment, and you transcended. It wasn't so much that something was trying to keep you from doing it, but something was urging you. Something was moving you out of one place in your being and in your life to the next place. And there's something you had to leave behind, and you did.
You know, it could have been like the Abraham moment
Yep.
where I was having to leave
Yep.
my old self behind, and I had to go and sacrifice my old self for a moment. And I will say that the one thing I kept hearing my father say in my head is, calm, calm. So I just sat in a chair, and I do believe I was sitting at Abraham Lincoln's desk. I shouldn't have been sitting there because this whole place is like, don't touch anything. And I sat down at this desk that was a chair, because then they have all these reenactments of these beautiful rooms. And then, of course, they have to have bathrooms for all the people that will go through there. So there's the door to the bathroom, and right outside of that door is one of these rooms that was a reenactment of, I think it was Abraham Lincoln's office. And I felt really bad about putting that cup of water on his desk, but I thought I was going to die. So I figured. So I sat there, and I'm telling you, the pressures were high, and I asked God, why? That's why I came back to you guys today and said, what is your why? I said, why? What am I supposed to do? Show me. Show me what I'm supposed to do. And I think I tried my best to find that stillness. And maybe that was that moment of everything slowed down and I could hear people talking, and, you know, or maybe I died for a second. I don't know. You know what? Who knows? I don't know, because there was nothing connected to me, but it doesn't matter. What happened is something of me died.
Transcendence.
And I let it go. And maybe that was the boop. That's
Yep.
all I felt, is a little boop.
Can I complement that idea with what Jordan Peterson
Please.
says? He says, life is suffering. Love is the desire to see unnecessary suffering resolved. Truth is the handmaiden of love. Dialogue is the pathway to truth. Humility is recognition of personal insufficiency and the willingness to learn. To learn is to die voluntarily and be born again in great ways and small. So speech must be untrammeled, unstopped. It must be allowed, so that dialogue can take place, so that we can all humbly learn, so that truth can serve love, so that suffering can be resolved, so that we can stumble forward to the kingdom of God.
I'll tell you, I didn't notice that patriotic thing until I was writing this little thought that I had. And I realized, we hear the word patriot. We hear it. We know what it means. But we hear a lot of words that we say we know what it means. But when you embrace something and you realize a patriot is somebody who is willing to lay down their life for another, that's a patriot. For their families, for their brothers, for their country. And of course we all watch this crazy stuff that's going on with the left. And I felt for the first time as an American, born in America with a silver spoon in my mouth, I would say people would say that because I've never had to suffer being hungry or any of that. But I felt what it was like to be a patriot for a moment, because I thought, something said to me, what if this man says, good, I want you to start immediately. Come with me, I want to swear you in. That's what happened to him. He's from San Francisco area, and he doesn't need all this. He doesn't need a paycheck. But it's not the paycheck. It's the job that you are called to do. I thought about it. Well, what about my family? I thought, well, this is for my family, of which you are my family as well. So I thought, I have to be willing. How could I say, nah, I'm okay. I'm 59 years old. My friend is about 63 or 4 or 5, I don't know. My life's comfortable. It doesn't matter. You must lay down your life as you know it to save the lives. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, as Spock said from Star Trek. And I thought to myself, I stand ready. I've said that before in my life. I do stand ready. I stand ready. And I think that's how it was in the days when the farmers put down their rakes and their plows and their things and they just went to fight. And I think that's how America needs to be. But this time we have to fight with a much, much higher degree of intelligence. Both IQ and EQ. Because without the emotional quotient, you're then just knowledge. And I think you said something about that's the left. The left has the knowledge. And what was the tree of good? It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yep.
So we really have to look at our lives and ask, why? What do I stand for? What do I stand for in my life? How can I possibly hold my life, the man that I am today, up as a torch of light to light the way for others? That's what men and women need to do, is to look at their lives and say, what do you do when you get in an elevator? Most of the time we're dead silent. That's PC. And not saying that we have to look for ways to go, hey, I can help you lose that weight. But I think that that's a great starting point. My dad probably didn't start out doing that, but that man is so bold. He, to this very day, tries to help. If he's in the hospital, he's trying to help the nurses that are there, or the helpers that are there trying to help him. And it's funny to watch. For me, it's funny to watch. But I do admire it because he doesn't stop. We have to be a light in this world, a light in this country. And if the country calls us to stand up, I was just yesterday, another thing happened to me. Two people were arguing, husband and wife that I know, and I happened to be next door to their house. And the woman started yelling at her husband, and so I thought, I'm going to go over there. And I went over, and I said, hello, neighbors. And again, I hear my dad's voice, calm. And it was just this stupid argument. And I said, everything okay? You want to talk about it? You want to come on over here and talk about it? No, it's fine, it's okay. But what I did was, the ripple effect of calm went out. That is what we need to be. Our ripple effect needs to be of God's calmness, the calmness that brings a higher way of living and thinking and being. Higher nature instead of lower nature. Non-emotional instead of emotional. Allowing God to put his calmness in you to be able to see what to do. Anyway, it was just an interesting thing. It lasted 2 minutes, and I know they appreciated it, and I don't want to be thanked for it. I don't care, because something inside it, well, that person never called and said thank you. That's the flotsam and jetsam. All the little thoughts, that's a lure, blink, trying to lure me into being an ego. We have to work God's will and don't want anything back. Because it's right.
Strengthen the individual. Start with yourself. Take care with yourself. Define who you are. Refine your personality. Choose your destinations and articulate your being.
And you know, he told me he's got some notes. Isn't that funny how each one of these things works along with these conversations? Yeah. And this is, none of it's rocket science. The rocket science helps us understand the gravitational pull on our soul, keeping us earthbound. That's rocket science. We can use that as an analogy to this thing. And but at the end of the day, these are all of my father's teachings. They all make sense to us. We listen to them and go, yeah. And then all of a sudden, a donut goes by.
People create their worlds with the tools they have directly at hand. Faulty tools produce faulty results. Repeated use of the same faulty tools produces the same faulty results. It is in this manner that those who fail to learn from the past doom themselves to repeat it. We got all those opportunities every single day.
You know, and it boils down to how sincere we are. How sincere are you? We can go through life saying, well, I want to be a good person. Of course I want to be a good person. Who doesn't want to be a good person? Then the donut goes by, or whatever it is, the anger goes by, and you grab a hold of it. That jerk, that fat person, this person, that person, whatever, that got the job I was supposed to get, cut me off in the driving in the fast lane, won't get out of my way, that person smells. Isn't it interesting? Think about this. Somebody walks by you and they have body odor. What happens?
Gag reflex.
One of those senses, you smell something, you can either say, okay, body odor. Or you can say, dirty, disgusting pig. Judgment, or watching the judgment. You can also say dirty, your mind can throw it out there like a lure, because we're dual-minded, two-minded, monkey brain, God-minded. You watch that. Something as simple as body odor, bad teeth. We start judging immediately.
You know, Jordan Peterson has a great way of putting this. He says, I don't think that you have any insight whatsoever into your capacity for good until you have some well-developed insight into your capacity for evil. It's like if you see yourself doing those kind of things and you step back and you say, wow, is that really me? Is that what I'm thinking? Or is there something else there?
You know, I know a guy had really bad teeth. Really bad teeth. And as a child, he would drink Mountain Dew. The color itself is not of this earth. You drop a cockroach in there, it's going to die. Yet we drink the living tar out of it. Rots the teeth. You ever put a tooth in a cup of Coke, and about a week it's gone. Anyway, this guy had the most rotten teeth. And I liked him, but I just used to always feel squirmy around him because of his rotten teeth. One day I saw him, and he had a whole new rack of teeth. You know, I liked him a little bit more. What is that? What kind of a crazy judgment? You know, and think about this, all right? And it's funny. It is funny. But think about Jesus when he went to the lepers. Think if we, and how we judge people with bad teeth or body odor or a big goiter on their face, if we had to meet up with somebody with leprosy, that is the ability to not judge. Jesus had the ability because he, of course, was perfect. But
I saw a picture of, I believe it's the current Pope. When he has audiences with people, there was a man that had boils all over him. The kind of person you and I would not want to touch.
Were they boils or
there was some kind of just horrible. The Pope just reaches down and he just grabs him by around his head.
Yeah. So I have a story like this. I was in Washington Dulles Airport about 4 years ago, and I saw this man. Basically, there's a disease where they have lumps and bumps and round little sacks of fluid.
Cysts, yeah.
I don't know if they're cysts or what they are, but this man had it all over his face, all over his hands, and all over him because you could see through his clothes he was lumpy and bumpy. And you've seen on the Facebook those are born different. There's stories of people that have giant things. I saw this man in the airport, and he was on the same plane as me, and I looked over and I said, "Oh my God, please don't let me sit next to him." Here he comes down the aisle. I looked up and I went, "Oh boy." And he comes in, and I thought, I can't look at him as he passes because it's just so sad. It's so sad. And I saw his hand reach out and touch me on the shoulder and said, "I'm in the seat next to you." So I said, oh. And I'm telling you, my heart was like a rabbit going, brrrr, scared rabbit. And I just thought to myself, what is this reaction? What is this reaction? It's because, of course, we're just judgers. We're judgers.
Well, it's also fear, because it's a fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown, but judgers. We're judgers, you know. I mean, what to be afraid of? He's just a guy. Anyway, he sat right next to me. He had these things on his fingers and his hands, and he was having trouble buckling his seatbelt. And I don't know what came over me, but I go, here, let me get that for you. And I clicked it. He goes, oh, thank you. And I said, no problem. And I sat there and I prayed to God to give me the strength to not judge this man. So once I got over that pain, because who the hell am I to judge this man going through this in his life? And I'm so fortunate not to hardly have a pimple. And I just felt ashamed. I went through a rainbow of emotions, of thoughts and doubts, and I got over it, and it probably only took a minute because we were still there. There was nobody else next to us yet. And I said to him, so what's going on with your hands there? And he told me the name of the disease. And I said, have you had this your whole life? He says, pretty much. And I talked with that man for 4 hours straight. He was a rocket scientist. And the nicest man. I just was amazed because you know what? Think of having that today's leprosy in essence. And to actually have a conversation with somebody that is not judging on you and hating on you. And I told him about my father, and I told him about my life and showed him what I was doing, and just talked and talked and talked. And at the end, I shook his hand, and I truthfully choked back a cry because of the guilt of that momentary judgment. Same with the teeth or the BO. It's just different levels of judgment. And so I went through the airport thinking about this the entire way. And I got to the curb where I was going to be picked up by the person I was there to see. And I was standing there waiting, just standing looking off into the nothingness. And this big limousine pulls up, and I looked over, and it was him getting in a big limousine, and he waved at me. And I said, can I have a ride? And he laughed. And he says, I'm sorry. You'll have to find your own way. And we parted friends that way. But my God, that judgment's thick in our souls.
I'm reminded of when I was very young, probably 11 years old, 12 years. Our dad had a friend who was blind. And he came over to visit, several times. And one time we were all going somewhere in the car, and I just didn't want to sit next to him. But it was because I didn't understand. I thought if I touched that, I would get it. But see, there's what I want to call a survival instinct in people that don't understand. If you don't understand what you're dealing with, if you don't have that presence of mind, and if you don't have the ability to question, why am I feeling this way? Those things take over and they run your life. And so each one of those is a moment of opportunity, which is, I like the way you explain that.
Well, every one of us has an opportunity each day in our life. Many, many, many times. Standing in line for the senior discount at McDonald's. Somebody in front of you doesn't have, I forgot my wallet. Do you pay or do you stand back and go, go out and get your wallet? It's $1. What is it? How much is the McDonald's coffee, It's 50 cents. I try in my life to be ready. I stand ready. I say that. And if you aren't ready, if you're not the Boy Scout with the little pocket knife, knowledge of a few knots, being ready, I never was a Boy Scout, but I understand the principle of being ready and kind of having the desire to be helpful, then you're going to miss that opportunity. And guess what? You miss the bus. You never know how long till the next bus comes along.
I'll just
You have to be ready.
give you one other thought, and that is about a year ago, I was going through some very difficult times, and I wanted to take my kids out for like a brunch. So I sat there at the table, and the kids were eating, and my wife and I were just watching them, and I said to her, "Why don't you go get something to eat, you know?" She goes, "Well, it's just too expensive." It was like $15 or something for whatever. She said, "No, we just can't do it right now." And so when we got up to leave, the waitress came over. She says, "Oh, bill has been paid." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, there's a couple over there that was kind of overheard your conversation, and they just wanted to make sure that they paid your bill." And it was like, there is goodness in this world.
You know what's funny? It's interesting. I was having a heated discussion with you and your wife. We were having this discussion,
Yeah.
and the people were eavesdropping behind us.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what we were talking about. What was it? Just-
It'll come to me.
So it was just, it
was like-
this, that, and the other. And we were
Yeah.
just being disagreeable with each
It
other.
actually, it was
Not-
something to do with what Jan had said to you about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's right.
Yeah.
We had a discussion about something that happened anyway.
Yeah,
but
I don't remember
It
what
really
it was.
isn't even what we were talking about. It was the spirit that we kept returning to.
Yeah.
That if you don't stand up for something and be willing to make a mistake. Chuck Williams and I have had this problem. You got to show up. I mean, this conversation. You got to show up and be willing to look dumb and say dumb things and maybe correct them the next time. Last time I said this. A lot of people disagreed with it. I've looked at it. There's a whole thing about the crying. I talked about crying a little bit. Something I'm looking at. A lot of people are like, oh, they're on the website. The crying again, 3 exclamation points. Okay. We are the only creature that cries on earth, And it did say Jesus wept, not cry. But anyway, it's another story. Point is, we were having the discussion. It was getting a little heated. And not so much, but just loud enough that people behind us could hear it. And this went on for like, what, a half an hour, 45 minutes?
Oh, no, 2 hours.
Whatever it was. We ate also in that.
Yeah.
The woman gets up to pay her bill. She stops at the table. You tell it. What'd she say?
She just said, "We really got a lot out of what you guys were talking about."
She said, "I just want to say thank
Well,
you and
her husband
apologize
heard.
for eavesdropping.
Yeah.
But you guys are really right on." And then,
Yeah.
then the husband gets up. And how long have they been married?
I want to say 48 years.
48 years. They said, we've been married 48 years. The husband's like this big, strong John Wayne kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys keep it up.
That was really cute.
It was just really,
Yeah.
both of them. They were
Yeah.
sitting back there going, he's right, she's right. No, he's right. Well,
You don't hear that kind of stuff almost ever. But
yeah, we were at the restaurant.
I've got to support this with another thing that Jordan Peterson said. He said, "Speak your mind. Put your desires forward as if you had the right to them, at least the same right as others. Walk tall and gaze forthrightly ahead. Dare to be dangerous." And I love this. "Encourage the serotonin to flow plentifully through the neural pathways, desperate for its calming influence."
He's a clinical psychologist,
Yeah.
so he understands we are.
Chemical beings. But
we-
we're spiritual.
We are, yes, we're flesh and blood. And from the earth we came, and to the earth we will go back to. And while we're here, my father's first book, How Your Mind Can Keep You Well, we have to learn how to overcome the chemical reactions that happen. Just maybe that's why I got that stomachache. There was so much going on. Courage was rising up in me, and anger and fear was trying to hold it down. There was a
Yep.
battle going on, and it was all chemical. And then finally, something popped, and the battle was won. Thank God for the better. But I would say that, we have a choice to make daily, hourly, sometimes every few minutes, how we react. And really, it goes back to when I went surfing when David is 6 years older than me. He took me surfing a few times. And I remember, here comes a wave, here comes a wave. And then one day, David or somebody said to me, you got to wait for the right wave. You got to let some of those waves go by. And you got to be in the right place. So positioning ourselves in life in the right place,
Yeah.
near the right people. You know, you're the collective soul of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look who you spend time with, because you are a collection of that. It's a collection inside of you. You tend to support each other in good or bad. So if you're around people that are truth tellers, not afraid to speak their mind, not afraid to disagree, I think the best part of the relationship I have with some of the board of directors is the ability to disagree, but do it with dignity. And then that person has a chance to either be dignified in their reaction or not. And then that's part of that relationship. You
Yeah.
looked like you wanted to say something.
Well, I mean, it's just I have one more quote that fits in perfectly. It says, you can find out what you actually believe rather than what you think you believe by watching how you act. You simply don't know how to believe before that. If you just become aware of yourself, and that really begins to change everything. You know, the struggle that you have, a lot of times people run away from it. They just don't know how to relate to it. They don't have the faith to go through it.
Yeah.
And
Well, to that, I think we being here challenges a lot of people out there to react or to act or to think or to judge. And it comes back to the man in the arena.
mhm.
Are you
Dare to fail.
Are you in the arena fighting the fight, or are you sitting in the grandstands judging?
Yeah.
And I hope that from the time I was here last time, a few of you have looked up The Man in the Arena, because it's beautiful. I
Theodore
posted
Roosevelt.
on my Facebook page the other day, and I had a huge amount of response from it. And the thing is that so many of us are comfortable in our lives. We're comfortable. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. And I'm not saying you have to step in front of a, bus coming along to stop it with your body to protect that little kid. Maybe snatch that little kid out of the way. So you have to be thoughtful. You have to be ready. Be ready in this life. Be conscious. Don't just walk through life. And I'll give you one more little story, and I think we're coming to the end, and you're welcome to say whatever else you want there. But I remember looking down at the ground. And I was looking down at the ground, holding my dad's hand when I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I was just walking along. I was watching my feet, and my dad says, "Son," he says, "lift your head up. Look where you're going." He says, "If you look down at the ground, you're going to walk right into something." So if you're walking in your life, looking down at your feet all the time, lift your head up and look where you're going.
I have one final thought. This may be off a little bit in some ways, but I'm going to say 10 years ago, I was down in Santa Barbara, California. And I had gone out to eat with my family, and my little boy, Alexander, was 4 years old. And I'm lagging behind everybody. They're walking down State Street toward the pier. It was a beautiful day. Who cares, Who cares how fast you go? So I'm going across this big set of railroad tracks. You know the ones I'm talking about that go across State Street? I look down the railroad tracks, and in this little tiny silhouette
You told this story before.
of a human
Yeah.
being. It was like this big. I thought, that's weird. There's somebody walking on the railroad tracks. So I'm walking along, and I look down and make sure my son's okay, and I switch him to the other side. He was on my right side. I switch him to my left side, and I'm holding his hand. And in that moment, this little man that's about this tall walks right up next to me. White hair, red face, yellow eyes, sharp teeth. How you doing? It's like, I'm okay. How are you? He says, I'm bored. I've been in hell all day. But I want you to know, I can't wait to pee on your grave. And I looked over to see if my son was okay. He didn't even notice it. And I'd look back, and he was gone. And I said,
Oh, man.
did anybody see that?
Better put a urinal next to your grave.
Did anybody see that? And I said, that was awesome. It was awesome. They're coming after me. They're making me aware that they know what I'm doing.
So the story that goes with that is that when you're playing a video game and the zombies are attacking, you're going the right way because the zombies are protecting the treasures.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
interesting when you dare to fail, when you dare to go up against the dark side. They have no problem letting you know what you're doing. There are going to be people that are going to walk up to you. It's like the Matrix. Anybody that's in the Matrix can be inhabited by an agent at any given point in time. There's this little creature. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know where he came from, where he went. But he gave me a message, and I thought it was awesome because that doesn't scare me. He wanted to scare me. It didn't scare me. I'm not afraid of this evil thing. That's what we live to take part in overcoming that. So when somebody gives you a hard time and goes crazy in front of you, calm.
That's right.
Calm.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.